The morning sun touched the long glass walls of the house by the sea. The water outside was calm, and soft light moved across the rooms like a slow dance inside the mansion. Everything was neat and quiet. The floors shone. The furniture sat in perfect lines. Even the clocks seemed to tick softly, as if they knew not to disturb anyone who lived there. This was the home of Richard Vail, a famous business leader who built smart tools and bright screens that people everywhere used. He had more money than most people could imagine, and yet the one thing he wanted most had always felt just out of reach: to see his 12-year-old daughter, Amelia, take a few steps on her own. Amelia was small and strong in her own way. She had big eyes and a quiet smile that appeared when she was thinking. She loved to draw and to listen to music through her headphones. She knew the names of seabirds. She could tell the time by the color of the sky at sunset. But walking had never been easy for her since she was little. Her legs shook when she tried to move. Her balance would go like a candle flame in wind. Over the years, many doctors had visited. They had tried many exercises, braces, and devices. Some helped for a while, and then progress would stop. Her room had a drawer full of papers with charts and notes, arrows, and dates, and each showed a small rise and then a flat line after a time. Hope turned into a quiet routine. The routine in the house was strict. The staff came in on time. The chef made gentle food with mild flavors that Amelia liked. The tutors arrived for schoolwork. The physical therapist visited 3 days a week with bands and rails, and careful steps marked by tape on the floor. Amelia tried to follow. She counted, she breathed, and she held the rails until her fingers hurt. But some days the fear of falling felt heavier than the weight of her own body. When she let go, she felt the floor as an enemy rather than a friend. She did not want that feeling, so she learned to distract herself. She listened to music and drew long lines that looked like waves, bridges, or city streets. She placed stickers on her notebook in patterns that made her feel calm. Richard loved his daughter more than anything, but he did not know how to handle his fear. He tried to fix what he could fix: schedules, machines, plans. He waited for the right specialist, the right device, the right new idea. He checked numbers and set limits. He always tried to protect her from disappointment. When he came into her room, his eyes rested on the equipment before they rested on her. He did not mean it that way, but that is what happened. He spoke to experts more than he spoke to Amelia about how she felt. He told himself that this was love. Maybe it was, but it was also a wall that stood between them. One weekday morning, a new person arrived at the mansion. Her name was Lucia Herrera. She had warm brown eyes, careful hands, and a steady way of moving, like someone who had learned to carry full glasses across a crowded room without spilling a drop. She was in her mid-40s and wore plain shoes and a blue sweater that had been washed many times. The house manager introduced her as the new cleaning lady. She had worked in different places before: a hospital, a small bakery, and a school. She had a laugh that rose quickly and went away slowly. She did not try to hide it when something felt good or kind. From the first day, Lucia noticed little things. She noticed how the rugs had edges that curled a bit near the corners. She noticed how the door lips had a thin metal strip that stuck up just enough to catch a toe. She noticed how the hallway lights were bright in the center and soft at the ends, making small shadows near the walls. She noticed that the music coming from Amelia's room had a soft beat. She noticed that Amelia tapped her fingers along with the beat when she drew. Even the chef noticed that Lucia was observant. "You see everything," he said with a smile. Lucia smiled back and said, "I'm new. New eyes see old things again." The house manager had given Lucia a list of rules: clean, but do not move important objects; dust, but do not touch the machines; keep the rails and the therapy markers as they are; keep the schedule quiet. The list ended with one line in bold: staff must not interfere with medical or therapy plans. Lucia read the rules and nodded. She respected rules. She had worked in places where rules kept people safe. Still, she also believed that kindness was not against any rule. And noticing a person was not the same as changing a plan. On her second day, when Lucia went to dust the upstairs hallway, she saw Amelia near the window at the far end, sitting in her small chair with a sketchbook. The window looked out to the water, and sunlight shone across Amelia's face. The girl had her headphones on but was not listening very loud. Lucia could hear the beat. It was slow and steady like a heartbeat in a story. Lucia did not walk straight up to her. She started cleaning the brass frame of a mirror on the wall and began to hum quietly with a rhythm. She did not put words to it. She just hummed in a pattern that matched the music. After a while, Amelia lifted her eyes. She did not speak, but she did not look away. Lucia gave a small nod, the kind of nod that says I see you, and that is enough for now. Later, when Lucia moved to mop the hallway, she made a careful choice. Instead of working from one end to the other, she cleaned small squares, one, then a pause, two, then a pause, each square neat and bright, each pause long enough to let the floor dry. To anyone else, it was just a method. To Amelia, it looked like stepping stones on a path. Her eyes tracked the pattern. She did not say a word, but her fingers tapped, 1, 2, 1, 2. In the days that followed, Lucia kept to her work and kept her eyes open. She saw that Amelia's posture changed when someone sat at her level. When people stood over her, Amelia's shoulders drew in, like a bird folding its wings. When someone sat next to her, she opened a little, like a flower that finds the sun. So when Lucia needed to dust the low shelf near Amelia's chair, she sat on the rug and worked from there. She did not rush. She made space for silence. When she did speak, she said simple things about the ocean or about the different sounds a home can make. The dishwasher sings a small song, she once said. Amelia smiled, because she had thought the same thing. One afternoon, the therapist came as usual. There were exercises to try, markers on the floor, a bar to hold, count to 3, then shift. Breathe in, breathe out. Amelia tried. She was brave, and no one could say otherwise. But the fear in her mind did not let go. After a few steps, her legs shook, and she felt the old wave of worry rise. She sat down and turned her face to the window. The therapist was kind, as always, and he did not push. He wrote notes. He promised to try a new approach the next session. He left the tape markers on the floor like a map that led nowhere. Lucia cleaned the room after the session. She picked up a small paper with a drawing of a bridge. She studied it not as a cleaner, but as a person who liked the quiet story of lines on a page. She placed it back on the table. Then she did one small thing that no one else had done. She rolled up the little edges of the rug and smoothed them down so they lay flat. She moved the small stool that sat too close to the chair. She wiped away a thin layer of dust from the top rail. These were not medical steps. They were house steps. But they were also kindness steps. The floor looked a little more friendly after that. The next morning, Richard walked down the hallway with his tablet in hand. He checked his messages. He checked the time. He nodded to staff. He liked the way the house ran on time. He looked into his daughter's room and saw her drawing. He imagined a day when she would not need the rails. He did not know what that day would look like, but he had hope in numbers and plans. When he saw Lucia sitting on the rug across from Amelia, tapping a gentle pattern on the floor with a folded cloth, he paused. It was not part of the plan. He felt the old fear. He cleared his throat and said, "Please keep to your duties." His voice was not unkind, but it closed the window for a breeze that had just begun. Lucia stood at once and nodded. "Of course, sir." She did not argue. She folded the cloth and returned to her cart. But before she left the room, she set a tiny square note on the corner of Amelia's sketchbook. It said, in neat handwriting, "Rhythm belongs to you." Then she went back to finish the guest room. Amelia looked at the note for a long time. She did not show it to anyone. She slipped it into the pocket of her notebook like a secret dot in the evening. The weather changed. Clouds piled up over the water. The wind picked up and sand skittered along the deck. The air turned cool and still. Right after dinner, the lights in the house flickered once, twice, and then went out. The backup system should have started right away, but something delayed it. The house manager called the service team. The chef lit a few candles in the kitchen. The tutor packed up early. The therapist had already left. The air felt like it was holding its breath. On the second floor, Amelia sat in the quiet hallway. Without the power, the elevator between floors did not work. The stairs felt like a mountain to a girl who did not walk without help. The evening staff spoke gently. "It's all right," they said. "The power will return soon." But time moved slowly in the dim light. Shadows sat along the baseboards. The soft hum that the house always had was gone, and with it went the sense that everything was under control. Lucia came up the stairs with a small lantern. She liked to keep a light in her cart for moments like this. The lantern beam was gentle and warm. It made a circle on the floor. "Amelia, look." The next morning, the house seemed to hold the memory of the soft clapping. Even when the coffee machine started and the waves outside made their usual hush, there was something new in the air, a quiet promise. Amelia woke up feeling a little different. She could not describe it. It was not a big burst of energy. It was more like a steady light behind the curtain of her thoughts. A feeling that said, "You can try again." When she sat up in bed, she looked at the folded note in her notebook. "Rhythm belongs to you." She held it between her fingers for a moment and then put it in her shirt pocket, so it would stay close. The day would be like other days. There would be school lessons, a lunch break, and in the afternoon the therapist would arrive. But in her mind, there was also a simple beat. 1, 2, 3 pause. She found herself breathing with it. It calmed her stomach and made the morning feel less heavy. Downstairs, Richard walked through the kitchen slower than usual. He usually checked screens and schedules right away. But today he paused at the window and watched the water. The night before had shown him something true and simple that no report had ever shown him. His daughter could move when she felt safe inside a rhythm and inside herself. He did not want to crush that with too many plans. He did not want to treat it like a product to launch. He wanted to be careful. He wanted to learn. When Lucia came in with her cart, he looked up and met her eyes. "Good morning," he said. His voice had less rush in it. "Good morning, sir," she replied. She was the same as always, steady, kind, not looking for attention. But he saw her with new respect. He almost tried to explain what last night meant to him. But he knew there were no perfect words for that. So he said something simple. "Thank you for the towels." She gave a small nod. They were there. She did the rest. Then she pushed her cart toward the stairs. After breakfast, the tutor worked with Amelia on reading and math. They read a chapter from a story about a girl who learns to build kites. Amelia liked the part where the girl tried different tail lengths and learned how a small change could keep the kite steady. She underlined a sentence. "Sometimes the wind is not the problem. Sometimes the tail is." The words made her think of her own balance. The tutor noticed her focus. "You're quiet today," he said gently. "A good quiet." Amelia smiled but did not explain. She was saving her words for later, when the therapist arrived in the afternoon. He carried a soft bag with bands and small blocks. He had a careful face, the face of someone who wants the best for you and counts every step to keep you safe. He greeted Amelia and asked how she was feeling. She told him she felt okay. She did not mention the towels or the clapping. She felt shy about it, as if saying it out loud might make it fragile. They walked into the hallway where the tape markers still lined the floor from last time. Before they started, Richard asked to speak with the therapist in a low voice at the door. He did not want to interfere, but he also did not want to hide what he had seen. Last night, during the power cut, she took a few steps, he said. The therapist's eyebrows lifted a little. "How?" he asked, not in a doubtful way, but in a curious way. Richard looked toward Lucia, who was dusting a shelf farther down the hall. Lucia laid towels like stepping stones. She kept a steady clap. Amelia moved on the pause, not on the count. The therapist turned this over in his mind like a small, bright stone. He was not a person who dismissed new ideas. He knew that people learn with more than muscles. They learn with rhythm, pattern, and trust. "May I try something?" he asked. Richard nodded and stepped back. The therapist walked to Amelia and said, I heard you tried something different last night. Would you like to try a little of that again? We can do it safely and slowly. Amelia felt both happy and nervous. The happy feeling said, yes, please. The nervous feeling said, what if I cannot do it again? She looked down the hall, and her eyes found Lucia, who gave the smallest, kindest nod. Amelia took a breath. Okay, she said. Lucia brought a fresh stack of towels and placed them along the hallway again, neat and flat, the same distance apart. The therapist watched the setup and noticed the exact spacing. It was not too close, not too far, just right for one small step at a time. He held a light safety belt in his hands but did not clip it yet. We'll keep it near, not on, he said. I want you to feel free. If you sway, I will be right here. Lucia sat cross-legged beside the wall and started the soft clap. 1, 2, 3, pause. The therapist looked at Amelia. We will not rush, he said. We will not look at the end of the hallway. We will only look at the next pause. The pause is where you move. The numbers are where you breathe. Amelia nodded and put her palms on the sides of the chair. Her fingers did not grip hard this time. They touched and then relaxed. They began. On the pause, Amelia lifted herself and stood, hands still on the chair. On the next pause, she placed one foot on the first towel square. Her knee trembled. The therapist kept his hands open near her, not on her, ready to catch her if she needed help, but trusting her to find her own balance. On the next pause, she brought her other foot to join the first. She rested for a breath. A small smile came and went on her face like a shy bird. They reached the next towel square. By the third, she wobbled and sat back in the chair to rest. The therapist said, good choice. Rest is not going backward. Rest is part of forward. Lucia kept the rhythm, steady as a lighthouse. The beat did not belong to fear or to hurry. It belonged to safety and to small bravery. After a minute, Amelia stood again and took another step. Then one more. The towels looked less like islands now and more like a soft bridge she could trust. Halfway down the hall, Richard stopped thinking about outcomes and started feeling the rhythm too. He did not clap. He only breathed with the count from where he stood. He realized something about himself. He had always tried to perfect the plan first, and the feeling later. But sometimes the feeling comes first. Sometimes you have to let the heart lead a little, and then the plan can follow. When they reached the lantern spot from the night before, now just a sunny patch on the floor, Amelia paused longer. She looked back and saw how far she had come. That view gave her a new kind of strength. She took 3 more steps, then sat again. The therapist wrote down notes that were not just about steps, but about timing. Move on the pause and breath sets the frame. He also wrote, towel distance, 1 small stride, and clap speed, slow. Steady. They ended the session with a simple practice, not walking, but standing and counting. Clap, 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 pause, breathe, 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 move. The therapist asked Amelia how it felt. It feels like I'm not fighting my legs, she said. It feels like I'm working with time. He nodded, eyes warm. Yes, you are borrowing balance from the beat. In the days that followed, they made the rhythm practice part of the routine. They did not do it every hour. They did it at calm times, after a snack, when the sun was soft on the floor. Sometimes they used claps. Sometimes they used a small metronome that ticked gently. Sometimes Amelia hummed the count herself and moved on her own pause. Lucia made sure the floors were friendly, no curled edges, no sharp changes underfoot. The therapist updated the plan to include rhythm paths, and he taught Richard how to keep time without rushing. Richard was a quick learner when his heart was in it. There were days when progress felt fast, and there were days when it felt slow. On a slow day, Amelia would stand and then sit 3 times and feel tired. On a fast day, she would do 5 towel squares in a row and laugh at the last one because she felt light. They learned not to judge the day by a number. They judged the day by how safe and seen Amelia felt. If she felt safe and seen, it was a good day. If she didn't, they paused and tried again later. One afternoon, the family doctor came to check on Amelia. She listened to the story, watched a short practice, and took notes. She did not call it a miracle. She called it a good idea with good timing. You found a door that works for her, she said. Let's keep using it with care. She suggested a few things to make it even safer. Non-slip backing under the towels, a steady chair placed at intervals, and shoes with soft, stable soles. She wrote a short letter for Amelia's file that said, "Rhythm-based motor practice shows positive results. Continue." Richard began to think beyond the house. He was careful not to push, but he also saw how many other children might benefit from this kind of gentle practice. He asked the therapist if they could write a simple guide. Not a big, complex manual, just a small, clear booklet with pictures that showed how to set up a path, how to clap the beat, how to use the pause, and how to keep everything safe. The therapist agreed. Lucia added practical tips from the house: how to fold towels so the edges lie flat, how to test the spacing with your own feet before inviting a child to try, and how to speak in short, calm sentences that do not crowd the air. They called the booklet Rhythm Paths. It was just 20 pages long, with kind words and simple drawings. There was a page that said, "The pause is the quiet place where courage lives." There was a page that said, "If you miss a beat, you have not failed. The beat will come back around." There was a page that showed a parent or helper keeping time with a gentle clap from the side, not in front or behind, so the child feels free and not watched too closely. Once the guide was ready, Richard asked the therapist if he knew a community